Winston Churchill was appalled by reports of the killings at Auschwitz. He called it probably the greatest and most horrible crime ever committed in the whole history of the world. He was immediately in favor of the proposal by the Jewish Agency to bomb the camp. "Get anything you can out of the Air Force," he wrote. "Invoke me if necessary." The Air Ministry gathered to discuss the feasibility of the bombing. The debate centered on whether the Allies could carry out raids with the precision to destroy the gas chambers and crematoria without killing thousands of inmates. The first option was a precision raid by low-flying Mosquito bombers, requiring a 1,200-mile flight to Poland.
To mount a precision bombing attack on Auschwitz, it was a very difficult operation to mount, very long distances from bases either in the Mediterranean or in England, and I think that to actually bomb precisely at that range would have been extremely difficult with the aircraft that were capable of doing it.
Many of the requests to bomb focused on the railway lines leading to the death camp.
The railways could certainly have been bombed in 1944. They were bombing railways all over Europe, of course, when they chose to. The problem here, of course, is, first of all, that it's a very difficult target to hit. Secondly, you can interrupt a railway, and you can be up and operating again within a matter of hours, at the very latest in a matter of days. Germans were mending railways all over Europe, often using slave labor. So I think the problem there is that attacking the railways would mean attacking the railways over and over again, and that would mean the diversion of very much more substantial resources.
They didn't think they ought to try to divert resources. They had 1,000 things to worry about. There's chaos on all fronts. The Allies were fighting two wars, one in Europe and one in the Pacific against Japan. And winning the war became the main object of all endeavors.
The next option considered to destroy the mechanism of extermination was a raid by heavy bombers. This could stop the killing in the gas chambers, but would also endanger the lives of the prisoners still incarcerated in the camp.
We were waiting, we were hoping for bombs. Even though it could have hit us, but we were hoping that they are bombing. I didn't mind dying by the bombs. For me it was more important that that something happened from outside, that somebody was doing something.
Since the request to bomb Auschwitz in July 1944, the Allies had considered its feasibility. Increasing information about the extermination camp continued to fuel the debate. Could a heavy bombing mission be planned in time to halt the killing?
By 1944, the Allies were capable of planning and mounting a bombing operation in a very short space of time. I mean, this was a sophisticated organization now. So I think we should be in no doubt that it was operationally possible for British and American bombers to reach Auschwitz in 1944.
But questions remained about the effectiveness of a heavy bomber raid on Auschwitz.
Bombing an extermination camp is quite different from bombing a military-industrial target. A bombing raid of a military-industrial target consists of flying over at about 30,000 feet or 25,000 feet and simply dropping bombs on them. There was no way to be more precise about this. In fact, more than half of the Allied bombs dropped during the war did not fall within 1,000 feet of their target. However, destroying Auschwitz in an extermination camp is absolutely different from this. You're not trying to blast the place down into smithereens. You're trying to stop the killing process without killing the inmates. And that's vastly harder. Now, the gas chambers at Auschwitz are about the size of two tennis courts, and they were partially underground. Now, planes flying over 30,000 feet with the technology that existed in 1944, which consists of simply pushing a button and dropping the bomb when you think you're over the target, plainly will not have the precision necessary to do this, plainly and obviously.
After 3 months of debate, both the British government and the US War Department rejected all requests to bomb the death camp and the railway lines leading to it.
The final refusal to bomb Auschwitz in 1944 has, I think, many causes. First of all, they wanted to focus on the military issues, and they thought they would defeat Germany quite quickly and liberate people anyway. Secondly, the operation was a difficult operation over a long distance, where there could be no real certainty that you would actually find the target and destroy it with any kind of accuracy. And I think the combination of these different considerations in the end persuaded the Allies that bombing Auschwitz was not worth it.
It remains one of the most controversial decisions of the war.
The RAF flew missions to Warsaw to drop aid to the Home Army during the Warsaw Uprising in August 1944. If that was possible, why wasn't it possible to bomb the Auschwitz camp? Even if it had caused collateral damage or been ineffective, it would have sent a very powerful message to the Nazis. It might have scared them into shutting down the gas chambers. It would have showed that the Allies were not prepared to see millions of innocent people being slaughtered just because they were Jewish. And the failure to make that gesture, that moral gesture, will forever be a stain on the Allies' war record.
If it was tried, it might have worked. On the other hand, what you might well have had been a complete fiasco. You might have actually killed the Jews while leaving the gas chambers and crematoria intact, in which case there would have unquestionably have been denunciations of this foolhardy mission then and now.
The Allies' priority remained the intense offensive against Germany's military and industrial targets. As part of that campaign, US bombers attacked the IG Farben synthetic oil plant at Monowitz. By a supreme irony, some of the bombs meant for the factory actually hit the death camp at Auschwitz-Birkenau. These are authentic aerial photographs from the actual raid on the 13th of September. Bombs fell on the Birkenau railway sidings leading to the crematoria and on the barracks of Auschwitz I, killing 40 prisoners and 15 SS guards.
We heard the bombing. It was a joy. How joyful it was when we shouted, "Hooray, hooray! Drop the bombs everywhere, come on." We were not worried whether we are going to get killed, but that's the first contact we had with the Allied forces. The first contact which we had with the people who we hoped are going to liberate us.
I'd rather die by a bomb, an English or whatever, than go on living like that.
This extraordinary photograph shows bombs destined for the IG Farben factory poised directly over crematoria 2 and 3. The accidental bombing had no effect on the operation of the death camp. The killing at Auschwitz continued, until finally the SS themselves dismantled the gas chambers and crematoria, destroying the evidence of extermination from the advancing Soviet army. In total, almost 1.5 million people, political prisoners, Soviet POWs, homosexuals, gypsies, Jews, had been murdered at Auschwitz. On the 27th of January 1945, Soviet soldiers liberated the camp. The SS had left the weakest prisoners behind to die. Thousands of others had already been transported to labor camps and factories in Germany. Hundreds of thousands perished on forced death marches. Between the first request to bomb Auschwitz in July 1944 and the destruction of the crematoria by the SS, more than 150,000 people had been murdered in the gas chambers.
I think there's no question that the Allies should have done more, not just in the case of Auschwitz, but in the case of the mounting evidence of German genocide and barbarism. And I think that was a moral lapse on the part of the Allies.
The Jews were being killed by the Nazis, and it was, to stop this, you had to stop Nazi Germany by destroying it. It's as simple as that. And that was what the Allies were trying to do and did very successfully.
The rejection of the appeals to bomb Auschwitz was a practical military decision. But the overwhelming moral case for action was simply ignored by the Allied decision-makers.
Many of them, in the British intelligence, in the American Air Force, and the British government, sincerely believed that the best way to save the Jews would be to defeat the Germans, and that any deviation from that task would be a betrayal. They simply lacked the imagination, as well as, for a long time, the information, to understand that each day that passed, thousands of Jews were being murdered in the camp, and that any excuse for not acting, however well-intentioned, condemned those thousands of people to death.
In Birkenau, I had a dream, and in the dream I was searching for my wife and child. Thousands of people all over I was, asking, looking, and I couldn't find them. And then I said to myself in my dream, I'll give up. They're dead, I can't find them. I don't want to go on now.
Leon survived the death march from Auschwitz. He was liberated from Buchenwald camp in April 1945. The following year, he discovered that his wife and child had been murdered in Auschwitz-Birkenau. Probably on the very day they had arrived.